Great to have you here with us for this July 31st edition of CCTU, the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. Hard to believe it's really the last day of July and what has really been a disconcerting year for all of us. I'm Bill Van Amburg, along with my colleague and partner, Alicia Gilde. We're your hosts for CCTU. Bonnie Trowbridge is at the webcast controls today. Whitley Porter and Casey Okazaki are monitoring chat and questions. So please do, through the course of this next half hour, share your questions with us, and we will really try to be responsive. Alicia, as usual, we really have a packed rundown for this week, and our focus is on transit innovation. What have we got?
That's right, Bill. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Yes, I'm excited about today's segment because we're bringing in a particular focus looking at connected vehicles and automation. But first off, we have a special news announcement that we're going to bring in our policy director, Meredith Alexander, to talk about a really interesting recommendation for a $100 billion stimulus program for California. So we're going to get a quick report out from her, followed by, as usual, our great report out from Bill Van Amburg to share industry news, and then getting to the real meat of the conversation today, talking about innovative transit solutions. We're going to bring in our Midwest Regional Director to talk about a really great working group looking at how we can accelerate the commercialization of autonomous vehicles. And then we're going to bring in a partner from New Flyer to talk about a really great project here in California with LA Metro, as well as to hear how they're preparing for the MOU that was recently announced to advance zero-emission bus and trucks, as well as to get their take on how they're coping with COVID-19. All right, Bill, I'll turn it over to you to introduce Meredith.
All right, that's great. And I think we had shared with you this slide earlier. This is a really big deal. I think all of us have been realizing that some of the funding is down because of COVID. But European states and China have actually been putting stimulus programs together, not yet in the United States, but California lawmakers are considering a $100 billion package. At least it's a proposal for a package. We have our policy director, Meredith Alexander, with us, just very briefly, just to give us a sense of what's going on with this. And Meredith, if you could share with us first, it sounds right. Some of the target is clean transportation, which we certainly would love to see. Who's behind the proposal?
Hi, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Meredith here in Sacramento. And again, we were really excited to see this proposal from joint legislative leaders on Monday. CALSTART has been working really closely with our members since COVID started to share messages in Sacramento about how how COVID is impacting CALSTART members, and really sharing the message that California's leadership on clean vehicles needs to continue, especially if GGRF funding is going to be really insufficient to cover important incentive programs next year. So this plan it's really an outline that was released on Monday by joint Senate and Assembly working groups. And again, they are talking about $100 billion being raised from multiple sources, none of them being taxes. They are discussing prepayment of taxes and giving taxpayers vouchers for prepayment, and also trying to securitize existing funding streams, including SB1 and also potentially the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is something CALSTART has been looking into this year as well. So the Senate Economic Recovery Committee is led by Senator Bob Hertzberg and Stephen Bradford, and Assembly members Phil Ting and Jackie Irwin. So we were really happy to see their leadership. And again, this is just a short 3-page outline, but there is a section calling for stimulus for the green economy that includes specifically a call out to clean vehicle incentive programs, both light and heavy duty. It omits the word medium, but we assume that that was an oversight. And so that's all we have right now is just this outline, but we will certainly be working with leaders from this committee to flesh that out and to let them know what we think would be really beneficial to see in that plan.
Hey, just real quick, and I know you joined us very quickly because you have other meetings you had to attend. There's a really narrow time frame, Meredith. This all has to happen when?
So the Assembly and the Senate both go on recess on August 31st. So there's 1 month left in the session, and I think there's a lot of elements of this package. So some of them might be able to be dealt with administratively, and some of them likely will require legislation. So we don't have a lot of clarity yet. There isn't a bill in print to implement this plan. Like we had a bond in print earlier this summer that unfortunately did not move forward. So nothing in print yet with the pieces, but our understanding is they're working on them, and they have a lot to do this month, but we're hopeful that certain elements of this will get implemented either legislatively or administratively.
All right, Meredith, thank you so much for joining us quickly and giving us what we know so far about something that at least starts to raise the right issues in terms of how do we grow out of this recovery with a good recovery that grows us forward. Thank you, Meredith.
Thanks. And of course, CalSTART members, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to get involved over the next month. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, perfect. Well, Alicia, I think we want to get people's ideas on if we're going to do stimulus, which we all think we need to do moving forward. How do we do it?
That's right. And thank you, Meredith. Great to have you. Great report. So yes, if we had stimulus funding to help advance clean transportation goals, what would you prioritize? Would it be vehicle purchase incentives? How about infrastructure installation incentives? Both vehicle and infrastructure incentives? And then lastly, demonstration and pilot programs to scale the technology. What would be your choice? What would be your priority?
Really hard to pick off that list. I think I would go with at least vehicle incentives and infrastructure if we had only one choice, but I hate having one choice.
And I think the two need to go hand in hand. So I think that's a really important one. But I hope I'm not giving everybody the answer.
Let's find out.
All right, everyone answered this one correctly. Great, thank you so much, everyone. It looks like 51% of you agree that both vehicle and infrastructure incentives are needed, followed by the demonstration of pilot programs to help scale the technology. That's great. Thanks, everyone, for your participation. All right, Bill, over to you for industry news.
Right, there is a lot happening this week, of course, around the world. Before we get into our innovative transit topics for the rest of the webinar today, and let's take a look at what's going on. First of all, climate continues to be such a big challenge in all of the world, but the northern parts of our planet are really suffering the most. I think one of the things that has really been noted is massive heat waves that are hitting Siberia and parts of Norway, and then big fires in Siberia. These are some of the challenges that are coming out right now that people are really paying attention to, because we're seeing more heating faster in the planetary north. But of course, there are innovative things that all of us are trying to do to reduce climate impacts. Edmonton, Canada is actually set to deploy what may be one of the biggest fleets of zero-emission buses in Canada, using Proterra Catalyst longer range vehicles. They'll get the first 21 out throughout the rest of the remainder of this year. They're also doing a unique overhead charging within the depot. It's one of the first uses of this in North America. LA Metro is also adding buses, and we'll talk more about this with New Flyer Industries, which is producing those buses. This is really important because it's a major backbone route in the San Fernando Valley region of the Los Angeles area. They'll be adding the first buses of what will be several on this route going into the G line, and we'll hear more about what's really making that work later in our webcast. We're also seeing some really innovative small bus design. This is something called the e-Bussy. It's kind of a funny name. It's moving into production though in Germany in 2021, and this little platform is actually almost like a running chassis that you can put different kinds of body styles on. In fact, 10 different styles, from pickup to utility vehicle to a little modular people mover, are available on that. Another innovative small and automated technology, electric and automated Ollie autonomous shuttles, are actually going to move into larger production and be deployed as part of the BEEP network. BEEP is a Florida-based organization that is actually starting to put out more of these vehicles to run people around in different kinds of enclosed environments. And this is looking like a very interesting scale up, not only of the idea of autonomous shuttles, but also this modular construction. They actually use 3D printing to build these little vehicles. And finally, a really interesting innovative award for design goes to Volvo. This is an autonomous electric haul device. They use it as part of a total system, and they've been using it in quarries as part of a demonstration project in Europe, in Sweden. But this little device is actually so uniquely looking that it has gotten a Red Dot Award for design, for industrial design. Well deserved. I've seen actually and talked to the project team on this. We'd love to see this one come to North America. So those are some of the interesting spaces where both electric and autonomous technology are moving forward in trucks, off-road, and transit. We're going to explore more of that in Innovative Transit today. And Alicia, you've got kind of our next program segment.
Oh, absolutely. And Bill, I'm just loving all the news about these great technologies coming out on automation, and great that we brought it to today's program, because there's just so much happening in this space. And we have a great example of an opportunity to really look at how we can bring autonomous vehicles from the pilot stage to the commercial stage. And our very own Maureen Marshall, the Midwest Regional Director for CALSTART, is going to come in to our program and talk to us about a really great working group, the Connected and Automated Transit Users Forum, which is really looking at how to further speed up that pathway to commercialization of the technologies. And then the creation of the next generation purpose-built vehicle cohort. And she also has with her a special guest that's going to join in as a part of the interview today. So Maureen, welcome. Great to have you on board. And please give us an overview of this great working group and all the good work that you're up to.
No, thank you, Alicia, and thank you for that awesome introduction. You know, as we've already seen through some of Bill's update, is the future of transit's upon us, and there's all these different vehicle platforms coming into the market. So if we go to the next slide, what I'd really like to talk about, again, there's more than 20 manufacturers today really addressing the need to build automated transit vehicle solutions, not only to move passengers, but what we're seeing is they're moving goods. We've seen these platforms be used for moving medical supplies and even COVID patients, which has been extremely important in 2020. There's also numerous scale pilots happening across the US, and we love that these pilots are happening. The focus is on building out that technology and ensuring that we capture all of those edge cases. But what we really need to think about is, how do we move these pilots into full commercial deployments? So that's when we turn to our transit community and look for the answers to see, with our Connected and Automated Transportation Users Forum, we figured out what are the key 3 activities that we need to focus on to really build out the future of transit. So number 1 element was purpose-built. We need to move beyond pilots and move into full commercial deployment, really meeting the needs of the transits. We also have to look at the policy and infrastructure to support these vehicle deployments. As we build from 1 to 2 vehicles to 35 plus across the country, we need to make sure that we have the right mechanisms in place to make it happen. And then thirdly, we really wanted to work with the transits to help them to plan for tomorrow. Their current fleet is becoming more and more connected, more and more automated. And then to get to those platforms that are fully automated, how do we get there? So how do we start? So if you go to the next slide, the fall of last year, we started to pull together a cohort of transit agencies from across the US. As you can see, we have folks everywhere from California to Maryland, and even here across the Midwest, really trying to figure out what is that next generation purpose-built transit AV that really fits into their operations. And today we have 14 members, and each of the members is providing their guidance and their direction on what their needs are to move to that next level of automation to strengthen their business case. Next slide. So this strong transit group, the cohort, has come up together, and they developed over 85 key performance parameters that define what this next generation purpose-built vehicle is. And they really were focused on how can we really go from 1 to 2 vehicles to possibly 5 or more. And from a high level, we know this vehicle will be automated, it'll be zero emission, compliant with federal motor vehicle safety standards, Buy America compliant, and more importantly, ADA compliant, and be able to operate across all climate conditions, because again, we want this vehicle to be used across the nation. And really, when we looked at the size of the vehicle, we focused on the number of occupants. So we're looking at 10 to 14 occupants for this vehicle. Next slide. So where are we at in this transit process, right? So we started, like I said, last fall. And as you can see, we're in the middle of the RFI process. The RFI was issued last spring, just a few weeks ago, it feels like, but it's probably a couple months ago. And we're going through those final reviews of the RFIs that we received. We had 11 strong contenders come to the table saying this is what they could provide to answer to the solution of the transit needs. And with that, I'm really excited to bring on board as a special guest one of our cohort members, and it's Gary Miskell. So today, Gary, I'm really pleased to have you here. Gary is the Chief Technology, Innovation and Technology Officer at Santa Clara Valley Transit Authority in California. He's responsible for the deployment, the strategy, and evaluation of smart and automated vehicles within their agencies. So welcome, Gary. We truly appreciate having you as a member of the cohort, and thank you for all you bring and all the participation you've had within the cohort. So I want to put you on the spot and get an understanding of how the cohort has benefited you. So Gary, to help others understand the value of the cohort, can you take a moment to highlight VTA's goals for transit automation and how this participation in the cohort has brought you value?
Thank you, Maureen. Yeah, so let's start off with like disruptions that it can, so there's a whole lot of disruptions that VTA can apply to the business model. That can be anything from mobility, on demand, mobility as a service, video analytics, 5G, IoT, V2X, and of course now working from home, what implications that can have. So one of the things that we focused on was what AV technologies should VTA be focusing on, and that could be anywhere from automated vehicles, coming into the yard and then parking themselves, our low capacity AV shuttles, or the AV BRT buses, first and last mile like vans or smaller vehicles that could use for like paratransit. And then of course, standard transit service, large 40-foot or 60-foot, autonomous buses. So VTA decided that we were going to focus our energy really on the lower capacity AV shuttles, which of course is what the cohort and the next generation AV project is all about. And so why do we feel that this automated transit shuttle model and that what the group is pulling together is so key and important? Because first, we believe that it is a reasonable size vehicle to automate. It has what we believe at least fewer unknowns when it starts talking about the passengers or looking at the levels of risk that you would have with an autonomous vehicle. And then it gives us more flexibility in routing the vehicle because it's smaller, more compact, quicker, shorter, smaller turning radius. It could be used in both a first and last mile, or could be an on-demand. It could be a fixed route or some kind of a hybrid solution. So we believe that the cohort really is providing us a mechanism to be able to pull all of that together.
No, great, Gary, and that's great to hear too. And as we look at this opportunity, our goal is really to move beyond the pilot stages, right, and get you an opportunity to be at scale. So you're receiving these vehicles and they work and fit appropriately into your operations. And as you mentioned, there's several applications they could fit. How do you envision moving behind, from the pilot stage to the full deployment stage, and how long do you think that will take?
Well, we believe, number one, it's going to take quite a few. We've got a few more years worth of work to do. This is not a technology ready to be deployed tomorrow, especially in any kind of full scale. So we believe that this, next generation of AV shuttle and that. Is an example. We did an RFI back in 2019 that kind of was really more at a high level. We kind of started introducing it. We started looking at, well, if you think of taking the person off the vehicle, well, what are all of the things that vehicle is going to have to look differently? How do you do ADA compliant? How do you deal with mixed traffic? What are we going to do? How do all of the staff fit into this new plan. So there's a lot of work that has to be done between now and whenever something gets into a more full-scale deployment.
No, appreciate it. And I apologize, Gary, I think we've run out of time. So with that, I'd like to open up the discussion to Bill and Alicia. Should there be any other questions that they may have?
Yeah, I think you know, this topic is so interesting. One last question, maybe for Gary, that's coming from some folks. What does this do in terms? People are worried about increasing vehicle miles traveled if we use automation. Because you're now providing a service with hopefully getting multiple people on, is that a concern you have in the transit agency? Because you actually are trying to bundle rides with, even if you're doing more miles with vehicles?
Well, we believe that the shuttle concept is that we'll be able to get more people, you know, to our fixed route, you know, high core routes or our train system. And then, so the idea is they're not driving their individual cars and filling up our car parking lots, or when the parking lot's full, then they have to drive all the way to work. Where if we really had a high quality first and last mile solution that was low cost and very accessible, that we believe that we would actually double or triple or quadruple our ridership on our core routes, because we're getting people to the core routes to get them across the county or across the service area.
So really using the right tool for the right job and really blending a full system.
That's what we're thinking, yes.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. And Maureen, thank you so much. We're really excited about this. And we hope that this leads to partners coming together with something that can, by working together, lead to a lower cost, faster implementation. Let's see how that turns out. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, of course, there's other news this week in transit innovation that we talked about earlier. Part of it, the formal launch of 60-foot electric articulated buses in the Los Angeles region with the nation's second largest transit property, which is LA Metro. One of several activities that New Flyer Industries, North America's largest bus maker, is involved in. Joining us today, we're really pleased to have David Warren, who's the Director of Sustainable Transportation for New Flyers Industry, joining us. And welcome. Glad to have you here, David.
Glad to be here, Bill. And as a longtime member of CALSTART, pleased to work with your organization.
Oh, always a pleasure. And David and I go back because he has truck routes as well as his bus routes. So he knows the technology inside and out. Hey, let's start out with the LA Metro and the G line launch of these 60-foot Arctic buses. This has been a long time coming. What is important about this deployment getting to scale? What did you need to do?
Well, first of all, I would say the biggest challenge in getting to scale is working through a lot of the infrastructure type questions. We chose a charging strategy with LA that's based on SAE J3105 with overhead chargers. And Bonnie, if you could show the one slide I have of the 4 buses. Okay, so these are 4 chargers on the formerly known as the Orange Line with LA Metro, now the G Line. But those are 4 Siemens 450 kilowatt hour, kilowatt chargers. So these had the potential to charge these 60-foot buses that have 320 kilowatt hours of batteries in less than an hour. So essentially for every 7 or 8 minutes to charge the buses, you can be charge sustained throughout the day on the LA G line. So, you know, the infrastructure of this project or any transit project that involves electric buses is huge.
Great. So it's so exciting to get that launching. So I think you've learned some lessons about embedding infrastructure into these programs and the lead times involved.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, David, that's great. And you all are just doing a great job in terms of the technologies that you're advancing and the solutions that you're putting forward to really support scaling the transit bus industry. Wanting to get your perspective on the recent news with the Memorandum of Understanding coming out of the 15 states, including the District of Columbia, with a really aggressive goal of reducing emissions by 30% by 2030. What signal that sends to you, and how is New Flyer preparing its business plan and strategy with that recent announcement?
Well, great question. And as far as New Flyer is concerned, we're fully prepared for transit buses to go fully electric. It's going to happen over a period of time, and we may see some agencies throughout the nation go at this very rapidly, mainly in a lot of the major metropolitan areas, but we'll see smaller deployments in rural areas as well. So from a New Flyer perspective, we're fully prepared to scale up production. You know, we produce anywhere from natural gas vehicles to clean diesel to hybrids. So the mix of how we build our product really is less important. Coming up to scale, obviously we got a supply chain that's highly involved. So as we go to larger deployments like LA Metro, there's 40 electric buses for the G line. As we go through these various deployments and having the volume, it certainly gets us more prepared at every step. So.
Great. Hey, a couple quick questions because I know we're heading towards our half-hour time limit. You heard the earlier topic on autonomous buses. How does that work into New Flyer's strategy, particularly with you as the sustainability director?
Yeah, we are very much active with autonomous buses right now. We've just announced within the last couple months the project with CT-DOT on their fast track system, which is going to use level 4 autonomy. And then level 4 is essentially through the SAE J3106 standard. Essentially the bus has complete control over the driving. So it's a very ambitious project. We have our technology partner, Robotic Research, that's involved in it. And this project will be completed for the Federal Transit Administration by 2023. So yeah, we're certainly committed to autonomy, and it's certainly electrified autonomy. So they go hand in hand.
Great. One last question that I think we wanted to touch on is COVID-19. What has that done to your organization and how you're dealing with your transit partners? Well,
you know, we're certainly spending a lot of time right now as an OEM and partner with the FTA, with the California Transit Administration, and APTA, the American Public Transportation Association, on various solutions and safety precautions, not only for the riders, but also for the operators of the buses. From our perspective, we're spending a lot of time on air recirculation throughout the bus, fresh air, you know, any recirculation that happens and how that works, the materials we select for our buses, and various other technologies. So it's certainly requiring a lot of focus of our organization, and certainly it's impacted us in other ways too. New Flyer announced earlier this week that our MCI coach business is going to be integrated with our transit bus business, and we're learning different ways to streamline our operations and become more effective in that way too. So yeah, I would say COVID has had a major impact on us in a very positive way, though, overall.
David, thank you so much. And I think, sadly, in the interest of time, we're going to have to move on. But there are a couple questions in the chat and in the question pane, David, if you wouldn't mind tackling those before we head off the air today.
Yep, be happy to. So if
but if we could do that offline.
Yeah. Offline, yes. Thank you.
Sorry,
yeah.
David.
Understood.
But thank you for joining us. Alicia, I think you've got our closeout poll today, though, around this autonomous vehicle issue.
Yes, I do. And David, always great to have you. Thank you so much. Bonnie, let's go ahead and bring up that poll. We wanted to get Folks, feedback on where do you see autonomous vehicles advancing first? With passenger EVs, how about TNCs and rideshare? Mini transit bus, off-road, truck? Where do you see autonomous vehicles advancing first? What segment?
You know, it's so interesting on this one that I don't see it in passenger cars. I really see commercial vehicles of some type being the ones where they can build a business case.
I agree with that.
Let's see what our attendees think.
All right, so mini transit, 32%, followed by off-road by 29%. And I would say what comes in third place is passenger EVs and truck. All right, really good responses, everyone. Thank you so much for that.
All right, well, and as usual, there goes another edition of the Clean Commercial Transportation Update, but really so glad that you could join us again today. Remember, each week's program is posted on our website by the following Monday. So if you missed a segment or you want to review it, please do that. And please follow our Twitter account and retweet CalSTART Update. Next week, we'll take a look at electrification breakthroughs that are going on in the maritime sector. Really an exciting thing that we're tracking in Northern Europe and wondering if it could come to North America and what are the best fits for that technology. Plus, we'll have all the week's latest news updates and tools. Until then, for Alicia, Gilde, and our Clean Commercial Transportation team here at CalSTART, I'm Bill Van Amburg. Please be safe, stay healthy. If you're in a region with high COVID impact, please wear a mask. Take care of yourself and take care of others. And remember, if it's Friday, it's CCTU. We'll see you again right here next week at this same time for Clean Commercial Transportation Update. Have a good day.